Yes. Gentlemen, hello. We are live. Today is Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. The time is 2:10 p.m. And today we will be discussing the spotlight effect and how to overcome it. We'll define it, we'll talk about why we feel it, and tactics to feel it less or not feel it at all. Now, firstly, I apologize if you hear music in the background. The people that live next door moved out, and so there have been workers in there the past couple of days. They just absolutely rip music all day long. They just blast it as they're hammering nails and shit and breaking down walls, whatever they're doing over there. What's going on, Ish? Good to see a dog. Yes, sir. We got him in the stream. Throw a like on there for me. My only ask. And so, yeah, you might hear some music in the background. Apologies. All right, and maybe you'll hear some voices if they get loud, but hopefully it's just background stuff and the mic isn't picking up on it. We'll see. So in other news, yesterday spent the entire day here in my apartment editing videos. So I fully edited the paid school community intro post. Took me quite some time. It was a cool concept. I did 3 different takes in different parts of the city, and then I spliced it all together and tried to make it engaging, fun. I also added just some evidence as well into that video so that guys can know what to expect when they are to join the community. Oh, thank you, Ish. Appreciate it. 1 viewer, 1 like. That's what we like to see right there. 100%. And so yeah, that was the first handful of hours of my day I spent perfecting the video. Yeah, you'd be surprised how much work goes into editing these videos. Like, when it comes together, and in that video's case, it's just like a 4-minute video, and so it doesn't seem like it would take very long. But yeah, it's like every transition, cutting it at every perfect point, adding the little audio exponential fade on every single. Yeah, it definitely takes some work. So hopefully you boys will enjoy that. Yes, what up, Mo? Good to see you, baby. Yeah, I already got the like on the stream. Thank you, man. So, and then the second half of the day, I spent editing the second date breakdown from back when I was in Spain. What I really love about those date breakdowns is I had the GoPro out there. So, in both of those scenarios, I literally pulled out the GoPro after we had our great night, and we just started chatting it up on camera. So I have a clip from the first date in Spain where it's me and the girl just talking afterwards, and then same thing after the second date. I was walking her to her Uber, and then we had a fun little interaction on camera as well. So yeah, I'm excited to show you those date breakdowns. Now, of course, moving forward from this point on, only paid school community members are going to be getting access to those videos. I found a feature in YouTube where you can share it with emails, and so only people that are signed into a certain email address will be able to access the video through a link, which is perfect. So that way we can eliminate people sharing videos and giving it to members that aren't in the community. Hopefully that's not going to be the case anyways, but that's just another way to mitigate that. And so yeah, I fully finished editing that. That was about 20 minutes, and that took me the rest of the day all the way into the night. Uploaded those to the cloud, so now we're backed up on all fronts. Got the whole hard drive backed up on the cloud, so I'm happy about that. Just in case I lose the hard drive, I still have all the old content. So, anyways, so that was my day yesterday. Now, what's left? Just to end the preface here, what's left is I'm going to be creating the description, the About Me description for the school community, the paid version, which will include pretty much everything I said in the video, plus some things that I might have missed in that video. And then I'll also be putting together some qualifying questions on my Calendly profile so that if guys want to book a call with me for one-to-one coaching for that screening call, then they'll also have to answer a couple of questions just to show how serious they are. If somebody can't click a few multiple choice questions to book a call, then that certainly tells me that they're not actually looking for my services, and rather they're just kind of like poking around, exploring options, trying to see, who's the cheapest, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, those are, and then I think I'm missing something else, but those are mainly the 2 last things to knock out before launching the paid community. Oh, and then of course, creating an agenda for it as well, so that I'll pick a day where we'll have the calls. Once people are joining the group, then I'll have a consensus on what time and what day works for the most people so that we can have the most people on each call. And yeah, I'm excited for it, man. I'm excited for this new chapter, baby. Mo, yes, I have, and you'll see it once it launches, baby. You'll see it once it launches. I have decided on a price, and yeah, you'll get that info once it launches. And if it is too much for some, then so be it. The people that join are the people that see value in it. So, anyways, so let's talk about the topic of today: the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect, how to overcome it, and what it is and why we experience it. So this kind of branches off from yesterday's live stream where I talked about permission, but now we're going to kind of zoom in a bit more on specifically the spotlight effect. All right. So what is the spotlight effect? This is something I didn't know this concept until I got into cold approach, and I worked with Christian out in Warsaw back in 2023, and he just explained this concept to me, and I it clicked immediately. I was like, oh, that makes sense why I'm nervous in certain situations, but then when I'm at home alone behind closed doors, I don't feel nervous at all. Right? That makes sense. So the spotlight effect is a moment in time. Typically, it occurs when you're out in public or just out with people in general. This doesn't happen when you're alone. And typically, it's when you're out around people that you're not 100% comfortable with or familiar with. And you feel as though the people in the general surrounding area are watching and judging you. So that is the spotlight effect. Now, oftentimes this is paired with calling attention to yourself. So usually what creates the spotlight effect is when you go from just another NPC walking down the streets, not doing or saying anything or drawing much attention to yourself, to doing something, cold approach in brackets, right? That's a big one, but doing something that is going to draw more attention to yourself than you're used to, than you expected. That's what creates the spotlight effect. That's what creates the feeling that people are watching you and they're judging you negatively. Yeah, they're thinking about you. And let's talk about, so that is what is the spotlight effect. Now, why do we experience the spotlight effect? The reason is, to ourselves, we are the center of our own experience, our brain, our body, yeah, our person. We are the center of everything that we experience. And because of that, we incorrectly assume that we are also the center of everybody else's experience, simply because we don't know what it is like to experience life through their lens, only through our lens. And so we incorrectly assume that other people are experiencing what we're experiencing, and because we feel scared, because we feel like there's a lot of eyeballs on us, we incorrectly assume that other people are seeing and feeling the same thing, and they're looking at us and they're going, oh, well, Ephraim is scared right now. Ephraim feels like he has the spotlight on him, so let's dial in, let's zoom in on Ephraim now, and everybody stop what they're doing, and let's sit and watch this guy and what he's doing. So that is why we feel the spotlight effect, is because we incorrectly assume that because we are the center of our own experience, we are also the center of everybody else's experience. Now, what I've come to learn, this is another point on the live stream, so I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. But what I've come to learn is everybody feels more or less the same way that I feel and that you feel in these social situations. So unless we're some grade A, what is it, A-list actor or celebrity who is just used to having the spotlight on us everywhere we go, unless we're that person, yeah, some actor, some improv legend who just is used to having the spotlight, a comedian, for example, unless we are that archetype of person, which is not most of us, right? Most of us are not that person. Most of us work a regular job, or we're used to doing regular shit that's not on camera, that's not in front of a live audience or a bunch of people. And so what was I getting at? Unless we're one of those people, I can't remember how I was going to finish that sentence, but whatever. So the next bullet point I wrote is that the spotlight effect tends to increase the less competent we are in a given environment. All right. So what I'm getting at here, we'll map this over to cold approach, but typically let's use me playing football, for example, back in high school, right? So because with the first few games in my freshman year, the spotlight effect was hot and heavy. All right. So mainly the reason was because that was my first, second, third ever time playing an actual football game in high school. And so I didn't have what it takes to own the spotlight and rise to the occasion. So what happened during those first few games is I dropped the second pass, and my confidence went down the toilet. I started thinking, oh no, everybody thinks I suck now because I dropped a couple passes. Oh no, I'm not built for this. I'm not made for this. And I was literally like hoping that the QB would throw the ball in a different direction and not to me, because I didn't want to make a fool of myself. I didn't want the spotlight on me. And I'm going, throw it to that guy on the other side of the field, because if he drops the ball, that's his problem. But at least the spotlight's not on me. And then you fast forward just a year later. So now I was a sophomore in high school. I was on JV. All of the really, really good guys that were really sick at football, they were already on varsity if they were sophomores, but not me. I was decent. I was good, but I wasn't anything crazy by the time I was in 10th grade. So I was the JV superstar, right? I was the sickest player on junior varsity. Wow, what an accomplishment. But this does relate to what I'm saying, because everybody was expecting the ball to go to me. Everybody was expecting me to make the play, especially when it came down to late game situations. This happened a few times where it's like last quarter, last play, game is on the line. Let's throw it to Ephraim, kind of a experience. That simple shift from being very incompetent and not knowing how to catch a ball, run a route effectively, score the touchdown, to just a year later having repped that out thousands of times, practiced it thousands of times, actually been in a handful of game time situations where that was the case for me. Just a year after that, I was able to rise to the occasion. I wanted the spotlight on me. I would tell the QB and the coaches, throw me the ball, throw it this way, right? Late game situations are happening, and I'm going, I know the ball's coming to me. It's time. It's my time. Spotlight's on. I love it. Yeah, I love this moment. We're rising to the occasion. So notice how when I was less confident, or specifically when I was less competent, then I was more worried about the spotlight being on me and I didn't want it, versus when I was more competent and effectively the best player on the field in those moments in junior varsity, right? So once again, I wasn't anything too great in this nestled suburban town in Bay Area, California, right? But because that was my reality, then something shifted. I wanted the spotlight on me. I wanted more of the spotlight. I wanted all the balls to get thrown to me. Pause. I wanted every catch, right? I wanted to score every touchdown. So that was just a difference in competence. And so let's map this over to cold approach, right? When I was first getting started and I was for the first time walking over to girls, this is back in Warsaw in 2023. I was so scared of the spotlight. I was so scared of the attention that would be drawn to me because of what I was doing. And a big reason for that was because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was going over there with no reps under my belt and just trying to figure it out one approach at a time. Now, thankfully, in my corner, I had somebody that was an expert in the field that I had paid to teach me to do this. So I didn't feel alone or isolated. But it doesn't change that it was still very scary to go over in those moments when I hadn't done it many times or ever up until that point. And I was so worried about the spotlight effect, right? I was so worried that people are going to be watching me, seeing me, and judging me. And then you fast forward to present day, right? And if you go through some of my more recent videos and live streams, you'll probably come across me saying something along the lines of, you want there to be a spotlight. In fact, you want the spotlight to be big and intense. You want to draw attention when you're walking over. You want, and the reason that I justify is I go, because it makes the moment that much more special, because it makes you seem that much more audacious. Because if you're walking over to her and she's in an isolated, desolate sidewalk where there's nobody walking and just a couple cars driving by, that is a lot easier and less of a spotlight effect than if you're walking up to her when she's waiting at a bus stop and there's 10 people in earshot, right? Two, same girl, same guy, same approach, but different scenarios. Yeah. In one case, a lot of no eyes on you. In the other case, a ton of eyes on you. And I'll say you want to position yourself as the guy who's walking over when there are more eyes on you, because it makes the approach that much more audacious. And as you begin to rep the skill set out, you find your groove, you start finding success as well. That's a big one, right? You get positive reference experiences under your belt. Then you'll recognize that when you approach the girl that's in the bold, audacious scenario, you get better reactions. This is assuming that you're owning it entirely, that you're going over fully convicted, full balls, full confidence. If you pair really good technique and really solid confidence with a really audacious scenario and you pair those two together, that's when I start to see the fireworks happen. That's when the girl starts to blush because she's slightly embarrassed because there's so many eyes on her, but she's still turned on because she's like, wow, I like this guy so far. I like the manner in which he came up to me. He didn't wait for me to be kind of alone and isolated. He just walked over with everybody around, right? And so give me a moment as I blow my nose here. So that's the concept that I wanted to make sure to cover, is that the spotlight effect, as scary as it seems at first, it tends to decrease in direct relation to your confidence increasing. So when you get more competent in any given environment, you start to rise to the occasion, you start to invite the spotlight onto you, and things start to fall into place, seemingly fall into place. In reality, what is it? You've just been in that situation multiple times and learned how to handle it, learned how not to handle it. So I've done so many approaches in these audacious scenarios that I've learned what works and what doesn't work. So what doesn't work is when I try to go for a very audacious approach, but I do it in a very meek way where I'm worried about everybody around me. And so I talk to her quiet, even though there's a bunch of people around and nobody's saying anything. I talk to her a little quieter because I hope that guy and Lucy over there doesn't hear me and all this stuff, right? I learned that kind of going half-assed and not squaring right up to her, but instead kind of like talking to her from an angle. I learned that doesn't work very well when I'm going in for just when approaching in general, but especially when going in for these audacious approaches, because people are going to follow the path of least resistance. And so if the path of least resistance is to dismiss you and pretend like she doesn't hear you, right? Like that's something you'll notice if you go in a very tepid, timid way. And let's say the girl has headphones in, you might say excuse me 2 or 3 times, but because your approach was so weak, she's almost she definitely is recognizing that somebody's there trying to talk to her, but she's almost ignoring you in the name of taking the path of least resistance, because she goes, well, this guy isn't, whatever this guy has to say can't be that important because he's coming up to me in such a weak way. So if I just pretend like I'm scrolling on my phone for a few more seconds, maybe he'll give up and walk away because he barely even tried to begin with, right? Versus if you're walking right in front of her and squaring up and looking at her, and before even saying anything, you're just right in front of her, she has no choice but to acknowledge you. Yeah, even if it's just to say, "Oh, sorry, I'm on a phone call," or "Oh, I'm busy," or whatever, she has to acknowledge you, right? And so that's what I mean is like notice the difference in audacity. And I've noticed that those scenarios tend to demand a lot more confidence out of guys than if she's just a straggler walking on the street and she's not with her a group of friends and there's not a bunch of people in earshot. Now, to be fair, I think that the less audacious approaches would be a fine place to start, but that's genuinely not where I started. Yeah, I mean, day one and maybe a little bit of day two out in Warsaw, that's what I was doing. But literally by day three, I told Christian, like, all right, let's turn it up. Like, I want to get so good at this that it becomes so easy for me to walk over to a pair of girls or a girl that's just chilling at a bus stop by herself. So instead of going for those girls, I'm going to be going for groups. I'm going to be going for girls that are right in front of restaurants and right in front of shops and where everybody can hear me, so that everything would be easier in comparison. Yeah. So um, we're jumping around a bit, but the next bullet point I put is that we're scared of negative judgment specifically. So when it comes to the spotlight effect, we're not scared of the spotlight effect or the spotlight because of any potential judgment. No, we're scared because of potential negative judgment specifically, right? And so the way that we can confirm this is if you think about if you were to walk over to a girl and all of the bystanders and the onlookers were like cheering you on and high-fiving you as you were walking over, and they're going, get her, Ephraim, you got this. Yeah, she looks great. She'll love you. And I'm imagine, right? This is like a movie scene, right? I'm walking over and they're high-fiving me. They're going, you got this, right? Imagine I'm going for her phone number or setting up a date. Everybody starts giving me a round of applause and clapping. All right, well, in that scenario, I would probably get a confidence boost. I'd feel better about myself. She'd think that I'm some sort of celebrity or something in that moment, right? So we're not just so and but the same thing is true. The spotlight is still on her and I. Yeah, there's still a bunch of focus and attention on us. So no, so I just think that that's important to recognize that we're not just afraid of judgment overall. We're specifically afraid of negative judgment. Yeah. Now you imagine the opposite scenario where I'm walking over and all of a sudden every head turns that's in the vicinity. Everybody turns their head and looks at me and starts mean mugging me. Yeah. You imagine I get in front of her and I say, excuse me, and everybody takes a few steps closer and they have this mean look on their face. And one guy pulls out a baseball bat and starts hitting it against his leg, right? On almost like threatening me. Obviously, something like this is never going to happen. But the point is, notice how in those moments, the spotlight effect is going to get way more intense. And you probably aren't even going to go in for the approach if that was the case, because you're going, oh shit, I'm getting a bunch of negative reactions and negative judgment. All right. So the problem isn't the spotlight effect. The problem is you are anticipating negative spotlight, right? You're anticipating negative attention and negative reactions. And so that's a big reason why I like to break those down for you and share with you that never has anybody done anything remotely bad while I've gone up and approached a girl, right? Nobody's threatened me. Nobody's walked over to me and interrupted the conversation. Nobody's given me mean mugs. Nobody's done any of this shit, right? And if they did, it was probably behind my back where I couldn't see them anyway. So who cares anyways? All right. So now let's talk about fixes. All right. So how do we fix our fear of the spotlight effect and learn to embrace it and learn to have it work for us rather than against us? So the first one is one that nobody that's watching this live stream is going to want to hear. I already know. Everybody hates hearing this. But the way to overcome your fear of the spotlight effect is to get in the spotlight more often. All right. More often you want to get into the spotlight. So obviously this means that you're going to want to go and approach, especially going for the more audacious approaches, especially, right? Even if you're a guy who's shit scared of approaching at all, if you can get yourself to walk over to a group of girls, or you can get yourself to walk over to a girl when she's in a big crowded area, then you're going to realize this firsthand. Yeah. So I guess another way to phrase this is I can't take my perception and just send it over to you via FedEx or Amazon mail, right? Unfortunately, I can't show you that this spotlight effect isn't nearly as scary as you think. I can't, I've already shown it to you. I've done it 100 million times on my infields, right? So if you're still scared of it, then that's proof that I can't do anything for you as far as getting over this fear. And it's you that needs to take the action to prove to your own psychology that this is an irrational fear. So you need to get in the spotlight more often. And by getting in the spotlight more often, you will inevitably begin becoming more competent in this area, approaching. Yeah. So if you walk over to the girl and you're feeling that spotlight effect that we've been debunking is hardly even a reality, but you're feeling it, right? So there's got to be something there if you're feeling it technically, right? Well, the remedy to that anxious, overwhelming spotlight effect feeling is to get into the spotlight more often, right? So we think about comedians, right? This is something that scares the shit out of me. If somebody told me, Ephraim, take this mic, go on stage in front of these people and make them laugh, I'd be shitting my pants. I'd be so scared I wouldn't know where to start. Yeah, maybe I'd try my best, but I wouldn't know what to do or what to say. Think about comedians just starting out. And I love that with the age of technology, a positive thing that's coming from this is that we get to see the behind the scenes of all these different people in all these different industries. So there are some newer comedians that are coming onto the scene that have posted from a few years ago when they first started stand-up, and now their channel has exploded a few years later and they're really good and they make the whole auditorium laugh, right? What's great is if you filter their videos by oldest and you go back to their stand-up routines from, let's say, 2020, when they were first starting out, you can watch them bomb their sets. The same guy that is now famous, that's now got 1 million followers, and that now is selling out his shows and everybody loves him and thinks he's hilarious. You go back just a few years to when he started and he's got evidence of him bombing his own sets. Yeah, he'll get a little audience of 20 people and he'll tell a joke in a very unconfident way, and he doesn't have his timing right yet, right? He's just getting started and nobody's laughing in the audience, and he's like, oh boy, I'm bombing, right? He's even saying it into the mic, oh, tough crowd, wow, you guys aren't laughing, wow, you guys must have had a bad day. And you're like cringing while you're watching this, going, oh my god, this is awkward. So this is proof to you that even the people that we see and we go, wow, they're so charismatic. They're so confident. They know exactly what to do, what to say, when to say it. They got there through reps. Even those people were not born, right? You think about actors in big movies. I guarantee you they had a bunch of auditions that they bombed, that they didn't get selected for the role, right? So to fix the spotlight effect, right? For that comedian to fix that fear of getting in front of people and being publicly humiliated and nobody's laughing at his jokes, what did he do? He just did it again. And then he did it again. And then he did it again. And he did it a few hundred more times. And each time he would rewatch, I'm sure he'd rewatch the footage and he'd go, all right, when I said this joke, I said it a little too fast. They couldn't even hear what I was saying. All right, when I said this joke, I fucked up the timing. So it would have been funnier. It probably would have gotten a laugh, but I messed up the timing, right? This joke was just completely off color and nobody wanted it. So I'm gonna scrap this joke entirely. And incrementally, just like this skill that I'm sharing with you boys, incrementally, they improved over time by getting in the spotlight more often. So what will you notice is you can find comedians and filter by oldest, and oftentimes there's going to be footage of them when they started out, at least these newer age comedians, right? But what I never see is somebody who their first ever video, they're already a star, already crushing it, everybody already loves them. I mean, I'm sure this has happened before, right? People say, well, we're naturally funny, whatever. But the point is, the vast majority of people in each industry have to stumble and get back up and fall and get back up and fall and get back up and fuck up and recover and improve over time. Yeah. So mapping this over to cold approach, how do we become more comfortable in the spotlight? We need to get in the spotlight more often. Yeah. So if you see now this is when I wish that I was really recording content from the very beginning, because if I had a cameraman out there with me in Warsaw, or let's say I had the spy glasses, you would see my version of the comedian bombing a few years ago, right? So in 2023, you would see Ephraim bombing by going over to the girl very scared, very weak, right? I was getting in front. I was barely giving an effort when I was trying to get in front of her. I was talking very quietly. So that was an example of me floundering in the spotlight. But rather than just giving up, going back to the drawing board and saying, all right, this isn't for me, I'm going to go back to Tinder and Hinge now and try my best there. Instead of doing that, I just kept going into the spotlight. So I just kept approaching, kept creating a bunch of big spotlights all around Warsaw. And what do you know? Slowly but surely, I started getting more and more comfortable in the spotlight. Yeah, I started to ease into the spotlight a bit more. And now, present day Ephraim can walk over, and you see my infields from Barcelona. I went and I stopped a party of like 9 girls that were on a bachelorette trip or whatever. Go watch that. Like, you could hear it in my voice. I was pissing my pants the whole time. I was nervous. But holy shit, right? Now I can go over and I could still seem cool, calm, and collected on camera, even though, behind the scenes in my head, I'm going, holy shit, I'm talking to 9 girls right now. They're all looking at me, expecting me to perform, whatever. But whatever, right? That's proof to you that a guy that was scared of the spotlight a couple of years ago can now go and create the biggest spotlight in Barcelona at the time, right? I'm exaggerating, but and still sound somewhat comfortable. Or you go to the infield before that, where the girls, it was 2 like Hungarian girls or whatever. I can't remember the straight platinum blonde hair. Those girls who saw the camera, and then I stood there for another 5 minutes and talked to them while they knew that we were filming. And I was just like, yeah, I'm just practicing being confident. I'm teaching guys how to be confident. How am I doing? And they're going, wow, yeah, this is impressive. Wow, you're confident. I'm like, yeah, I figured I'm doing good. So what are you guys up to while you're out here? Yeah, what's the plan? Right? I just kept going, pretending to be all smooth and shit, right? That's an example of somebody who has learned to embrace the spotlight and just lean into it. Yeah, lean into that discomfort and perform anyways, right? We talk about rising to the occasion. All right. So that is the first fix, is get in the spotlight and get better. All right. Now, the next fix to overcoming the spotlight effect, overcoming your fear of the spotlight effect, is I kind of already touched on this a few times, but I put learn to rise to the occasion. We respect attempts more than we respect avoidance. So a very easy example that I have here is when I was on this camping trip. Yeah, my cousin last year, sometime 2024, he got married. And so a few months before his wedding, there was a bachelor party, excuse me, that he threw. And his bachelor party was to go on a big camping trip with all his close friends and his family and stuff. So there had to be about 20 of us, right? 15 to 20 guys on this bachelor's trip. And we all went to some green area, some forest, to go camping, right? Had this little 2-mile hike. Right, we drove a few miles, parked, 2-mile hike up to the campsite. Great. Now, what I'm getting at with this story is I remember we were all in the campfire, right? The sun was starting to set. Now it's completely pitch black. We got the fire going. We're all sitting around a campfire, passing the s'mores and the marshmallows and the beers and all this stuff. And the interesting thing about this group of guys is my cousin who's getting married, he's a musician. And so all of his friends were also, what do you know, musicians. And so everybody was bringing out their trumpets and the fucking drum kit. And this guy's got the bongos and he's got his flute and all these instruments. And I'm looking around like I must have missed the memo. I'm going, uh-oh, like everybody's got an instrument but me. What's going on now? And so, but what I remember specifically is there are, one or two other guys who forgot to bring an instrument or just they didn't have one like me. I just didn't have an instrument. And I remember my cousin, he grabbed the mic, right? They also had a little output speaker where you can hear whoever is speaking into the mic. And he said, all right, well, we need somebody to freestyle while we all create music with our instruments. And so he starts looking around at the people that don't have the instruments, and he's like looking at one guy. The guy's going, no, not me. I can't freestyle, right? Then he looks over at the other guy. He tries to hand him the mic. He's going, no, I would never. I'm going to make a fool of myself, right? And then he looks at me. Yeah, nobody else is going to rise to the occasion, and I'm not a fucking freestyle artist. I'm not a music maker. I don't play any instruments. Yet here we were, right? It's his bachelor party. I'm scared. I'm in front of 15, 20 guys that I just met for the first time that day who I'm worried, oh no, they're probably going to judge me. This freestyle is probably going to suck. But what do you know? I grabbed the mic and I did it anyways. And it came out choppy at first. And then I started getting some rhyme schemes together and it started sounding okay. And I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I was trying to find a beat. But what do you know? I look around after I'm done and after I pass the mic on and now I've broken the ice so the next guy is less scared of doing it. And all I'm getting is nods of respect from the guys that are playing their instruments. Yeah. So this is what I mean. We respect people that rise to the occasion. So even though I was scared and I was feeling the spotlight effect in that moment of, oh no, I'm going to be judged by my peers and my cousin's friends and stuff. They're all going to think I'm lame because I'm going to butcher this freestyle. But I was the only fucking guy who was willing to do it. Yeah, at least at first. And so when I grabbed the mic and I did my best, yeah, and then I finished off and I'm kind of laughing at myself as I'm doing the freestyle, right? But I'm looking around and guys are nodding, right? Guys are going, let's go, Ephraim. Let's go. You did it, right? You did it. You got over your fear. I mean, who knows what they were thinking, but this is the reaction that I was getting, right? Then I hand the mic to the next guy who didn't have the instrument and he does his best as well. And all of a sudden, like all it took was one person stepping into the unknown for everybody else to feel more comfortable doing it. Yeah. And so this is what I mean. The people around me respected the fact that I tried, even though I was unequipped, even though I was incompetent. I tried. I gave it a shot. I wasn't too afraid of making a fool of myself that I went, oh, excuse, no, I'm not going to do it. Could you imagine how less cool that moment would have been if all of us just decided, no, we don't want the mic, we're not going to freestyle, and then there was just no lyrics? It still probably would have been sick, but it would have been nearly as sick if we had everybody involved like we did, right? And so people respect the guys that at least attempt, right? At least go for it. And so let's map this over to cold approach, right? I'll just speak from my perspective. I respect the guy that is unequipped, that doesn't think that he's good enough quite yet, but he's going to go for it anyways, and he walks over anyways. I respect that guy 10 times more than I respect the guy who's focused on looks maxing for the next decade, who thinks that he needs to have all of his ducks in a row before he ever walks over to the girl, who's asking me all these questions about ratios and percentages and what should he expect, who's asking all these theoretical questions about, well, what if she says this? Then how should I respond? Okay, but if she says this and then I say this, then if she says this, then how should I respond? That guy is the equivalent of the guy who was in that circle, that campfire circle, who was too scared to grab the mic. That's the equivalent of the guy who's going, oh, I'm too scared right now. The spotlight is too bright. No, give it to that guy. I'm too scared, right? And the guy who's unequipped, but he's just going for it, is the equivalent of me in that scenario, who is going, I'm not musically inclined. I've never played an instrument in my life. I've never taken a music class, but I'm just going to grab the mic and go for it. Yeah. I respect 10 out of 10 times. I respect more the guy who just attempts and goes for it, even though he's not accustomed to the spotlight yet, than I do the guy who tries to like logic his way into being comfortable in the spotlight, even though that's never going to happen. Does that make sense? So that's my bullet point there. Learn to rise to the occasion. All right, we respect the attempt more than we do the success, anyways. Yeah, it's like it's a cherry on top if you line up a date with her and you get a phone number, but that's not going to change my respect towards you, her reaction, right? If I watch you walk over and you give it your all, I'm hats off, man. I'm going, well done, fair play. Yeah, you tried, regardless of how she responds, right? Regardless of if she goes, ew, bye, or if she goes, wow, oh my God, you're great. Take my phone number. Let's go on a date. Either of those responses does not matter to me. Yeah, one, I'm sure it's going to matter to you, but to the person trying to teach you the skill set, I'm trying to teach you to attempt, because I'm already aware that you're going to get some reactions like the first and some reactions like the second. And I can't control the reactions that you get. I can only control, or, I can only help you control whether or not you go in, right? I can only teach you how to control that one factor. So learn to rise to the occasion. All right. The third way. So the first way was get in the spotlight more often. The second way was learn to rise to the occasion and just attempt anyways when you feel unprepared. And then the third way would be shift your perspective to the best that you can to other people's perspectives. So it's likely that they're thinking the same thoughts that you're thinking. All right. And then I have even an example of why that I believe that that's the case. So when we're talking about shifting your perspective, let's try to get out of our brains for a second. So if your brain is anything like my brain, then when I go outside and I see a girl that I want to approach and I'm planning on it and I get a little nervous, what happens in my mind is, these days not so much, but certainly starting off, what happens in my mind is, oh boy, how many people are around? Oh boy, how many people are going to hear me? How difficult is this going to be for me to get her attention based on how loud the environment is or how quiet the environment is? Does this girl seem, just based on my experience and my track record of approaching, does this girl seem like she's going to stop for me? Or does it seem like she's really busy, really in a rush, probably not going to stop for me, right? These are all the thoughts that come to the forefront of our minds when we're thinking about going for an approach. Really what's going on is we're trying to talk ourselves out of the approach through logic. And we're going, well, what's the likelihood that she's going to stop? Well, she does look a little bit busy right now. Well, there are quite a few people around. And we're trying to logic ourselves away from the approach by going, well, it's illogical for me to approach right now because the circumstances say that blah, blah, blah. And history says, yeah, that's what's actually happening, is you're trying to talk yourself out of the approach, right? Same thing happens to me, just at a way lesser degree and a lot less frequently now because I've done it so many times, right? But that's what's going on through our minds. Now, let's try to step out of our brain for a second and let's just put our mind into the stranger that we're worried about their opinion and who's going to hear our conversation. All right. So let's say this is just a regular guy. He's got his Asics shoes and his dad socks, and he's got his jorts on, and he's wearing a collared short sleeve shirt. That guy, right? We're so worried about ourselves and his perception of us, we forgot to consider what's going through his head. Yeah, because this is our what's the word, when you dump something, our projection, right? This is our projection of what he's thinking, but we forgot to take ourselves out of our mind from our perspective and think about what he's likely actually thinking, right? So not like, what is he thinking if we were the center of the world and we were the center of importance and everybody was worried about us? No. Objectively, mind out of body, what is that guy likely thinking with, knowing that we're not the center of the universe, that everybody is not super concerned with us? Well, that guy is likely thinking anything of the following. He's likely thinking, damn, I get it that OKC won, but it sucks to see Halliburton go down in that game 7 with that injury. Oh, that sucks, right? That guy's way more likely thinking that than he is, who's this guy in the blue collared shirt with the curly hair, with the clips in his hair and the nose ring? I wonder what he's doing. Likely that's not what's going through his mind, right? Very much more likely he's thinking, all right, my wife made me another ham sandwich for lunch today, and I told her I like turkey, damn it, and she added too much mayo. I don't even like that much mayo. That's much more likely what that guy is thinking. Not, oh, who's this guy who's walking over to this girl? I wonder what he's doing. I wonder what he's up to. I wonder if he's up to no good. I wonder if he's harassing the girl. I wonder if I need to go and intervene. Likely he's not thinking that, right? What's way more likely, this guy is thinking, wow, it's actually a little chilly today. I wore my jorts, but the breeze is getting to me. I'm a little cold. I should probably go back to my work truck and get a jacket before I head back after lunch, before I head back into work. Yeah, it's a little cold outside today. Or he's thinking, wow, I gotta make sure I catch the bus. What is it? It's 2:30. The bus leaves at 2:37. I got a little over, a little under 10 minutes to get to the bus stop. All right, I got to make it over there. Yeah. He's likely thinking, fuck, I just ran out of cigarettes, right? I got my pack of American Spirits. I just smoked the last one. Damn, I got to go back to the corner store now. This will probably last me until the end of the workday. All of these thoughts that I just said, that guy is 100 times more likely thinking any of those than he is to be hyper focused on you or on me when I'm walking over to a cute girl. Does that make sense? So how do we help ourselves get over the fear of the spotlight effect? Try to shift our perspective to the perspective of the people that are around us when we're going over and approaching the girl. And it's very unlikely that they're even thinking about us, that they even saw that we exist. It's more likely that guy is worried about Game 7 of the NBA Finals than he is to have even noticed that I exist. Literally, yeah. It's like when you're walking down a street, you're not registering every person that you're passing, right? And so it's like even if somebody goes and talks to somebody, you're not like storing that in your brain consciously and going, all right, that guy in the blue collared shirt with the hair clips in his hair walked over to that girl that I thought was pretty cute and she's wearing a cute skirt, and I'm gonna consciously store that in my mind for the future usage, and I'm going to continue on with my day. And so now that I'm thinking about this guy and what he's doing, I'm going to also try to call back to this. Tomorrow, if I see this guy again, then I'm going to start a Reddit thread about him. And it's like, this is all we're reaching, right? We're mentally reaching. This is very unlikely to be the case. All right. So first way to get over your fear is to get in the spotlight more often, and you will improve just by virtue of doing it more. Just like the comedian who starts out bombing his sets, and then the next set sucks but a little less, and then the 10th set sucks but a little less, and then the 100th set is actually decent, and then the 1,000th set, everybody's like, wow, you're a fucking guru, you're so funny, right? Just like that. All right. And then, so that was the first way. The second way was to learn to rise to the occasion, because we respect people that attempt even when they're unprepared plenty more than we respect the person that just doesn't attempt at all, right? So the best thing would be to attempt when you're very prepared, but preparation comes through attempting multiple times anyways. So it's like you can't cheat code your way to being competent with this. The only way to competence is to be uncompetent a lot of times until you start to learn, you start to improve, you start to get results. Yeah, that's my route, at least. I haven't found anybody who just was dropped on this earth and was absolutely sick. All right. Now, so that was rise to the occasion. And then the last thing I said was shift your perspectives to the perspectives of others. Oh yeah, the example I wanted to use is that for those of you who've approached, you've probably noticed this, but I certainly have noticed this. When I go over to a girl in a very audacious setting, let's use the classic bus stop example, or let's just use a park bench. Let's say this girl's sitting on a park bench and there are like a few bystanders around. What I've noticed is when I go over in a super bold, audacious way and I plant myself there, right? Full balls, both balls with me. I'm bringing them over. And I plant myself there and I say, excuse me, firmly, and I give her a firm compliment. And then all of a sudden we're in conversation back and forth. What I've noticed is the strangers that were once within earshot, they tend to excuse themselves. So it's like those strangers can also feel the spotlight. They can also feel the attention that you've now drawn to where you're standing and where the girl is. And if they're anywhere close to you, oftentimes what I found is that they tend to remove themselves from the spotlight. They tend to take a few steps away from the spotlight. Maybe they go over to the next bench. Maybe they start leaning against a further pole, right? But they usually don't stick around for very long, especially once they see that the conversation is going well. Yeah. So this is what I mean. If you're putting yourself in the brain of other people, they're probably just as afraid of the spotlight as you are. Right. So you're so worried about attracting all this attention to yourself. You're unknowingly also attracting attention, indirectly to the people that are surrounding you. And they're so afraid of even being anywhere near a spotlight because most of the time, they're just NPCs that are too scared of doing anything that they actually want. So they start to make space for you and make room for you. And it's this cool concept. I noticed that when I was out in Poland. I told Christian about that. I'm like, yeah, I noticed people start to like make a bubble around me. Or when me and Christian, for an example, when we would film our videos back in Warsaw, we would be right town square, big statues behind us, big monumental Warsaw statue behind us. And we'd plant ourselves, put the tripod on there right in the middle of everybody where everybody could see us, and we'd start talking to the camera. And same thing, I noticed that people would literally make a little bubble around us of like 6 to 12 feet, like COVID, right? They're too scared to get too close to the spotlight. Now, every once in a while, there'd be a brave soul who would like come in and try to photobomb for a bit and then run away, but they were too scared to walk up to us and join us in the filming, obviously, right? So it's like, everybody's feeling these spotlight effects. Yeah, everybody's feeling it, and it's likely that people are gonna be moving away from the spotlight anyways. Yeah, and then the last thing that I put here is something that I love to end with: floating rock mentality. Yeah, I've talked about this 100 million times at this point. So you boys, you're no stranger to it. Excuse me while I try to snag an Amazon shift while I'm on stream, huh? Okay, none available yet, unfortunately. Just trying to get this lined up for after stream so I can go make a bit of money. But floating rock mentality, this isn't news to you boys, but if it is at all true that we are living on a ever rotating, ever spinning sphere of molten rock and all these elements and all this and water and all this stuff, and we're being hurled through space, and the only thing that's keeping us centered is an orbit around a giant burning, ever burning star that's one day going to explode and kill everything and everybody, and the universe itself that we're somehow existing in is ever expanding, and there's no end, and it was always expanding, and it started from a cluster of cells that was always there, and all of this, this theory, if that's even 1% true, then it really, oftentimes what it does for me at least is it allows me to refocus my attention on what is and is not important. So whenever I'm really caught up in like, oh my god, back when I was trying to get that tech sales job and that was my only focus, oh my god, I need this tech sales job, and then I got the job and I was, oh my god, I need to perform well, oh no, I need to hit my quota, oh my god, I need to do this and that, and you're just thinking about all this stuff that you need to do with your life. For me, it's really valuable to just take a step back and remember that I'm going to be a literal blip in reality in 80 to, what is it, 60 to 80 years. I'm 25 now. If I live to 85, hallelujah, I'll certainly be dead by the time I'm 125, certainly in 100 years. So it's like, and then what's very likely to happen is all of my life's work and my accomplishments and whatever I did up until that point, depending on how outstanding it is, depending on how revolutionary it is, it'll be remembered for some time. If I'm Einstein level, which is very unlikely, then it'll be remembered for centuries. But what's very likely to happen is that there will come a point where no one will have even remembered that I ever existed. And even if I have kids who end up having kids who have kids who have kids, and we go down 7 generations from now, they're not even going to know my name. They're not even going to think about me ever, right? I don't even know the name of my great grandparents. That's only 3 generations. It's like parents, grandparents. I know their names. Great grandparents, no idea. Never seen a picture of them. Never heard their name before. Don't even care. Right. So it's like, if that's the case, then am I really going to spend the little bit of time that I have on this earth so fixated and so worried about the opinions of other people who are also going to be perishing, who are also going to not be remembered in a few generations, who also think that what they need to do is so very important and so integral to everyday society, but then they die and nobody blinks twice. Then the Queen of England passes away, and for a weekend it's big news, and then Monday comes around and everybody's like, all right, so back to America, back to the political race, right, or whatever, the election race that's going on right now, back to this, back to the sports, back to the football playoffs, right? It's like, we're not nearly as important as we think we are. And the only reason we think we're important is because we live reality through our own lenses. So it makes sense, right? I mean, it's probably a very important survival mechanism to think that we're the center of the universe, because if we got this completely hippie mentality where we're like, nothing matters, nobody matters, then we wouldn't have created a society that's so advanced and so abundant. And obviously there's going to be pluses and minuses to that as well, but I'd say it's been a plus. I'd say that having plumbing taken care of since the time that I was born until now is a big plus to me having to build an outhouse and go shit in a hole somewhere like our ancestors used to do, right? I'd say laundry machines are a big plus. So it's like, compared to going to wash my clothes in a river like our ancestors used to do. So it's like, yes, there needs to be some level of self-importance in order for us to think that we're worth progressing as a species. So it makes sense why we have this level of self-importance attached to, the makeup of our mind. But there's also times where we can just let go of that for a moment and go, all right, this helps me in some ways. This helps me get up in the morning and create something that I'm passionate about. Yeah, this helps me drive forward into the world and produce. But what it doesn't help me do, it definitely doesn't help me get over my fear of walking over to the girl. So that's a moment where you can go hippie mode and go, all right, floating rock mentality. None of this shit matters anyways, right? I'm going to be dead in 100 years anyways. So it's like, don't you want to live your day to day how you actually want to live it, dating the girls that you actually want to be dating, instead of passing by them on a sidewalk every day and thinking, fantasizing, going, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be so nice if that girl liked me? Wouldn't it be so nice if that girl was my girlfriend? But not doing anything about it. Yeah. Floating rock mentality. None of this shit matters anyways. It's all made up anyways. So why are we going to live our lives so scared of what our next door neighbor thinks and that stranger over there who's passing by? Who cares what he thinks? Who cares what she thinks? Doesn't matter, right? All that should matter is what you think. Yeah, what you think is right and going after that. Yeah, what you want your dating life to look like and then going after that. Can you imagine if I let any of these thoughts stop me? Could you imagine? Not only would none of these dates have ever happened, not only would I still be in that scarcity mentality where I'm swiping on dating apps and trying to maneuver myself around dating and trying to find girls that like me, but I'm too scared for anything serious with that girl. I'm going to jump ship, go over here, and this girl's less hot. And could you imagine if I was just blindly walking my way through dating like I was before I met Christian, and I was too scared to do any of this, or I rejected it all, and I cared too much about what other people think? It's like, not only would I have created this amazing life for myself, but I also would have not ever impacted the lives that so far I have touched, right? So far, the guys that have improved their lives and their dating lives just by watching my free content. Yeah, it's like, now you see the importance of this stuff, right? So, yeah, what up, Urban's in the chat? Good to see you, Urban. Let's go. So we got Ishmo and Urban in the chat. What do we have here? Urban says reps are the key. I agree. Ish says the more you expose yourself in large crowds, the more confidence you'll gain. Exactly. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, right? It's like, the person who's performing a song live for the first time is probably going to have some kinks in there, right? They're probably going to be a bit nervous. Maybe they're not going to hit every key. But then you pan over to Katy Perry, who's done how many world tours, and it's like, well, she can rock the stage out, right? You look at somebody like Michael Jackson, R.I.P., and it's like, he'd been performing since he was literally 4 years old or whatever in the Jackson 5. So it makes sense why that's a showstopper by the time he's an adult. It makes sense why he's the king of pop, right? The guy's been bred and built for this. But go back to his earliest performances. They were enticing, but they certainly weren't what he was able to do by the end of his career, right? That's going to be the same with every performer. So it's like the exposure is what is going to build the skill. Yeah, getting in front of the girl, confronting the spotlight effect. That's what's going to build the skill. That's what's going to reduce the anxiety and the fear. All right. Ish says when you're unprepared and you improvise on the go, it flashes authenticity. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most authentic it can get, right? It's like if you're able to get yourself to a place where you've practiced kind of like witty banter. I know it sounds so cringy when I say it like that, right? Because I would never like be in a conversation with a girl and go, haha, witty banter, haha, right? But it's like that's essentially what encapsulates it, is not taking the conversation too seriously, learning how to uncover fun in the conversation in each corner. And when you're able to start doing that effectively, then it's great, because now you're not worried about a script. Now you're not worried about what am I going to say. You're just walking over there and you're confident enough in yourself that you'll figure it out on the go. And that's just a very powerful place to be. All right. And then Urban says, you're saying some really deep shit right now, Ephraim. Floating rock mentality. Let's go. Nice. Let's go. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream, boys. Oh, let's go. Well, I really enjoyed making this one. I like zooming in on these topics. We could do this for forever and ever and ever. But yeah. So this is what I had for you boys today. Fortunately, I don't see any Amazon shifts right now. I might just drive over there anyways and assume that I'm going to be getting one. Usually they pop up. But yeah, so that's what I had for you boys today. If anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the chat before I log off. But yeah, so all we got left, like we discussed, is putting together the agenda for the school community, putting together the description, I want to make sure the Calendly link is ready to go so that when the paid school community drops, people will also have access to book in a consultation call with me and work one-on-one with me as well. So that's good. And yeah, we talked about content. Something else I need to do still is I got to record the infield, what do we call them? Footage breakdown, right? Coaching breakdown of the Brazilian date girl. So it's funny. This is going to get kind of confusing, but there's two Brazilian girls that I lined up dates with in the last couple of weeks. The most recent one is the one I did a live stream on that you already heard of. And then the one before that was when I was back in Union Square, and the similar thing happened, but I got pretty much the entire conversation clipped on the glasses. So that breakdown is going to be coming first. And then after that, it'll be the most recent date breakdown, footage breakdown kind of a thing. Whatever. So that's coming up. We're dwindling down on the content because in, what is it, 2 weeks now? I think 2 weeks from now I'll be in Serbia. Let's see. My flight is the second week of July is when I'm flying over. So we got about a little over 2 weeks before I'll be in another country, and I'll be able to get you boys content in another country. Ugh. Hopefully by then somebody will have booked, we'll have a few people booked consultation calls in. Ideally, I'll be able to coach somebody out in Serbia if somebody's ready to make that jump. Then I'll have a month out there. So, I could definitely set aside a week where we focus on coaching. And if somebody does apply for the one-on-one coaching and they get accepted, then that would be a great place to start. But, obviously I could bounce from Serbia to another country and coach you there as well. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. I'm excited. We're just taking this 1 day, 1 week at a time, not forcing anything, but trying to just give you value. Yeah, just trying to make sure that the school community is going to be valuable from the moment that you join. And then obviously, that one-to-one coaching offer will be life-changing from the moment you land in the same country that I'm in, and we meet for the first time and we start repping out the skill together. I guess we can end on that. Is if you're somebody that wants to take your dating life to the next level and you don't want to just follow along my content and try your best alongside it, but you want to actually interact with me in real time instead of through the YouTube comments medium, you want to do it through DM, then we've got the paid school community coming up soon. Kind of gathering anticipation for that now. So a couple of guys already know about it and they're excited to join. So there we're going to have weekly group coaching calls. During those group coaching calls, we'll see how it goes as we get along. But, during those coaching calls, we'll just be talking about, I'll basically give the floor to you guys, and I'll have prompts and questions for you, and you'll be able to talk through your week in regards to dating, how it's going, how your approaches went that week, what you're working on. And then I'll be able to give you my feedback, and we'll kind of go around the circle and do that. And then we'll also be doing live role playing where, one person at a time will be able to, we'll be on a big call, but one person at a time will be able to unmute, and then we'll be able to pretend to flirt back and forth and just work on tonality, work on pacing and timing, work on just finding fun in the conversations, and we'll be able to rep that out. And so after we have that conversation, then I can give you feedback and go, all right, you know what, I was trying to tee you up when I said this. I was hoping that you took it this direction, or, I'm happy that you went this direction instead of asking another fallback question. And so we'll be able to get you some exposure in conversation. And then obviously you'll have direct access to me to ask any questions, send me over your text threads, send me over your audio infields, and I'll be able to audit those, give you feedback on what I think you're doing well, what I think you should stop doing, how to improve. And then you'll have access to all the exclusive content on this channel. So all the content that the vast majority cannot see, you'll have the behind the scenes peek at those videos, which include, moving forward, the date breakdowns that I'll be recording. So whatever dates I end up lining up in Serbia and I create date breakdowns from those will only be for paid school community members, as well as the date breakdowns from Spain that I already have edited and uploaded. Nobody's seen them yet because I haven't released the link to the community yet, which I'll do once I launch the paid community. And then obviously, that's, that's like medium step. So first step would be you're consuming my content, you're trying your best on your own. Props to you for doing that. Medium step or second tier would be join the paid school community, and you get to work with me closely and directly. And then obviously the biggest step, for those of you who just want to skip the line and go from 0 to 1 in regards to dating as quickly as possible, I'll have a vetting process where you can book a call in with me. We can discuss whether or not you'd be a good fit for what I have to teach and coach, and then we'll pick a country, we'll fly there, we'll meet up, and I'll take you through the ringer. I'll take you through the ringer, baby. I'll be right by your side as you go in for your approaches. I'll be giving you real-time feedback. I'll have you mic'd up so you can listen into your own approaches afterwards, and I can listen in real time. I'll be able to tell you how, your body language and what you're lacking there. If you're doing too much, you're being too expressive, I'll be able to tell you how you sound in real time. And yeah, obviously that'd be the most valuable option for guys that just want to take their dating life by the horns and really knock it out. So anyways, boys, looking forward to what we have coming up over the next couple of months. Yeah, this has been a work in progress. It's been only 2 weeks or so since I quit my job. And so I'm loving life thus far. Yeah, I'm loving not having to wake up and do those stupid ass cold calls. And I'm also loving that every day I'm working towards a mission that I actually believe in. Yeah, and I'm helping guys that are struggling in this area. So anyways, boys, I will talk to you soon. As always, going for your approaches because life is far, far, far too short. And as we talked about, floating rock mentality, nobody cares about you anyways. Nobody's watching you anyways. So go after what you want. Yeah. That girl might be your girlfriend, but you're too scared to go over, so you'll never know, right? Instead, go answer that question. Does she like me or does she not like me? Let's go figure it out. Let's go over and say hi. All right, boys. I believe in you. I love you. Let's